In the last video on the 328i E90, I was able to get the replacement N52 installed and running. In today's video, we're gonna get this E90 out on the road for a test drive to make sure all of the other components are functioning properly. Then we'll take care of a few minor mechanical repairs. So let's get into it on Rebuild Revival. One of the first things that I want to do is hook a scanner up, and today I'm going to be using my Autel. It'll scan through all of the modules for faults, and as you can see here, we've got 8 in the DME, 1 in the EGS, 1 in the RAD2, and 4 in the FRM. We'll start in the DME. Okay, so all of these say absent because they probably happened right when we first started it. So all of those are fine, except for this one here. We'll have to look into that. Next, we'll check out the EGS. So this just means we need to do a fluid change, which I was planning on doing anyways. No big issues there. Now I'll check on the RAD. This has something to do with the antenna. I'll have to look into that, no big deal. And finally, the FRM. Right side marker lamp faulty. I thought all of the lights were working. Brake light right faulty. I'll have to look into the lights, but obviously that's also not a big deal. Okay, let's erase everything. Now I'll delete the engine's adaptation values since the N52 we swapped in is a little bit different than the original N51. So one of the things I need to do before I go out and drive this thing, and what one of the codes is telling us, is change the transmission fluid. So I'm gonna lift the car up and change the oil and the tranny fluid. This thing's been running now on and off for probably about 30 minutes at least. It's gotten up to operating temperature a few times. So I think we're ready to do the oil change. So let's lift the car up, change the tranny fluid and the oil. All right, so we've got the car lifted up in the air, and I was going around trying to see if I could see any leaks anywhere, like coming from the oil pan gasket. I didn't see anything really with the oil pan gasket. It all looks pretty dry. I did clean out the pan, so whatever comes out now into the pan is gonna be from this engine. So let's drain the oil. Okay, let's catch a little bit in our jar. All right, doesn't look too bad. I didn't see any chunks come out, so that's good. All right, let's pull this thing out. There is some debris in there. All right, so I cut open the oil filter and spread it out, and check out all of that stuff that this thing caught. So definitely a good idea to do this quick oil change. Now we can go back in with our new filter and our Mobil 1 040. All right, now we're gonna drain the transmission. So we've got the drain plug here and the fill plug here. We're gonna make sure we can get the fill plug off first. Plenty loose. I like to give these a little tap sometimes. Nice and black. Okay, now we'll put the drain plug back on. This doesn't need to be too tight. We'll take our fill plug out. All right, so I'm just gonna go in with this Valvoline Max Life multi-vehicle. It's recommended for Dexron 6, which is what the GM transmission calls for. I know some people don't recommend it, but this is what I'm gonna use. So we're gonna do our initial fill until it starts coming out of the fill plug, and then we'll run the engine, get it up to operating temperature, run through all the gears, and then we'll do our final fill, just using one of these type of transfer pumps. All right, that's coming out. So now we're gonna start the car. Okay, so we are at a good temperature. 105 is good. So now we'll go shift it through all the gears. And we'll also go into manual. Now we'll do the final fill until the fluid starts coming out. Okay. To get rid of these two fault codes here, we'll perform a transmission oil change in the Altel. Now I'll just drive the car back and forth in and out of reverse and drive in the shop just so the car can see that it is going into reverse and drive properly. Afterwards, you can see here there are no more faults in the EGS, and the code in the DME referring to the transmission is absent. Okay, now we're ready to go. The car's been warming up for about 15 minutes. I just need to clean these windows off really quick. Something's up with this mirror over here, but not a big deal. We're all warmed up, so let's go. Ooh, a little bit of a weird shift right there. Ooh. Transmission feels a little bit weird, but let's give it a minute. You can see the steering wheel is kind of all over the place as well. Something's going on in the front end, but other than that, it seems to be running fine and shifting okay. It did shift a little weird back there, but I'm gonna chalk that up to it hasn't been driven in a while. So let's kind of get the transmission warmed up as well. I know the AC is not gonna work because I haven't recharged that yet. Manual mode is working good. All the way into 6th. Back into drive. All right, let's see if it downshifts when I floor it. Yes, and accelerates really good. We are going to go a little bit faster. Let's at least get it up to like 65. Oh, something's rubbing over there. I think the inner fender well's coming off. Whoops. Let's go see what that is. It's just this. I gotta strap that up somehow. There was a local hardware store that was closer than my shop, so I just grabbed a couple of zip ties and strapped it up. I think we're pretty good with the test drive. I mean, everything feels really good. The steering wheel is a little bit off. Some of what I was feeling from the front end was that cover scraping and breaking off. The alignment, I probably will need to get an alignment. We're gonna bring the car back to the shop and start fixing some of the little things. We do need to scan it again, see if there's any issues. I think it's still telling me, uh-oh. Right as I'm saying that,
something happens. Well, let's go bring the car back to the shop and scan it and see what it is.
Steering angle sensor. We'll check into that. No big deal though. All right, now I'm gonna go get tires put on. The tires that are on this, at least 3 of them would not pass inspection, I don't think. So I found a good used set, 4 tires, mounted, balanced, and in alignment for about $250. These tires are supposed to have about 80% tread left. So we're gonna go to this tire shop, check out the tires, and see if they are actually 80% tread. So this tire right here is the best one. This one would definitely pass inspection. I think the inspection you need to have at least 4 seconds tread depth. This is more around 5 or 6. Okay, so here's one of the worst ones. The center tread depth isn't that bad, but once you get out here towards the edge, the alignment was probably off because these tires were in the front. So they also check the tread depth here on that tread depth is probably 2/32 of an inch, so that is not going to pass. So I'm over here at a local new and used tire shop. These guys got right to work replacing the tires, pulled it up onto the alignment rack, and quickly did an alignment.
You need the pitch? No.
So now I'm back at the shop. I got the tires put on, I got the alignment done, and the tread on these tires are nice and thick, so we're good there. But while I was on the drive to the tire shop, I did notice that the brakes were pulsing a little bit, so the rotors do need to be replaced as well as the pads. So we're gonna replace all the rotors and all the pads. Before I start anything, I'm gonna pull some of this brake fluid out because I will be compressing the calipers, which will put brake fluid back into the reservoir. And if I need to fill any afterwards, I'll just go back in with some fresh brake fluid. Now we'll pull the 2 caliper bolts. I'll just pull the caliper off. And I'll just hang it up out of the way. Now I just like to tap the socket in here a little bit. It kind of helps seat it and break loose the bolt. Well, since I'm not going to be reusing this, I'm going to use a metal hammer. Now I'll just pop the pads out. Look at that one. That's almost gone. Now we'll pop the little sensor out of the pad. Just pull it out. Here we go. So now I'll compress the caliper. I also just wanted to show you the caliper compressor that I have. It's made by Icom, which is Harbor Freight's higher end tool brand. I do like this kit. I've used it a few times before. I just recently got it, but as some of you may know, some calipers need to be rotated as you compress them. These on the 328i E90 did not, but this kit comes with a lot of different attachments for a lot of different calipers. They give you a little index card here, which kind of shows you which attachments are for which cars, but you can also just tell by looking at your caliper. So I do like this kit, made by Icon. I'll put a link in the description below. Now I'll just hit everything with some brake clean. Now we'll put a little bit of brake parts lubricant. Anywhere there's moving parts, it's good to put some lubricant. Now we'll pop the new pads in, but we'll put a little bit of lubricant onto the back of them as well. And on the areas where they will slide. That should be good. We'll reinstall the sensor. Just like that. Now we'll put some lubricant on the back of the other pad and where it slides. Now we'll slide it into place. Now I'll just hit this surface with a wire wheel. Hit it with some brake clean. Put a little anti-seize on here. Ooh, that's a lot. Just so the next guy doesn't have trouble getting these off. That is a lot of anti-seize. We'll pop the new rotor on. And this rotor has like an oily film on it, so I'll just hit it with the brake parts cleaner first to get that off. I got a little bit of lubricant on the pads themselves, so I'll just hit them with a little brake clean. That should be good. I forgot to put the little retaining clip on, so we'll put that on. There we go. I'll put the caliper bolts back in. And now we're done with this one, so we'll go do the other three. So this is what it was before, and here is after. And now I can top off the reservoir with some fresh .4. And after we apply the brakes, it'll probably need a little bit more. So I'm just gonna top this all the way up. All right, now I need to replace the coolant reservoir. It's leaking around the seam right here where the two halves meet. You can kind of see some of the coolant here. So here's the coolant reservoir that I got. I actually pulled this from a pick apart, and it has been replaced at some point because this is, I think, a common issue with these two-piece reservoirs like this. They kind of start leaking around the seam. So this one was replaced, so that's kind of good. It looks fairly new, a little bit dirty, but definitely not leaking. So let's get this installed. I pulled most of the coolant out of the reservoir, so now I'll just clamp off the lower hose, remove it, undo the two bolts, disconnect the sensor, and reinstall the replacement expansion tank. Now I'm going to recharge the AC system. We've got the manifold gauges hooked up already, the low side over there, the high side here. We've got the vacuum pump over there, as well as our refrigerant here. Every car will have a sticker that tells you how much refrigerant, what type. Right here somewhere in the engine bay, mine's on the hood, sometimes they're right here. So as you can see, ours needs 1.37 pounds plus or minus 0.02 and R134A. So we're going to go ahead and pull a vacuum on the system and make sure it is holding vacuum, which means there are no leaks in the system. And at that point, we'll go ahead and start the car and refill it with R134A. So we'll go ahead and turn on the machine, open the valves, and now we can open these valves. and we will open these valves. Now you'll see it start to pull a vacuum on the system. We'll just let it get all the way down to around -30. All right, now we're approximately at -30. So we're gonna close these valves. And turn the machine off. So now we'll just make sure this vacuum holds for a while. All right, now this has been holding vacuum for about 30 minutes or so. It hasn't moved at all. And now we'll need to put this little valve attachment onto the refrigerant canister. And for mine, I need this little adapter on this end. And now I can hook my hose up to it. And we can open the valve. So we'll leave that there. And we can purge this line because this line has air in it by pushing on this valve here. Okay, now that's purged. Now we'll start the car. And we'll turn the AC on. And now we can open this valve. So as you guys just saw, the high side gauge was building a lot of pressure and the low side wasn't really building any pressure, and that is most likely because the expansion valve is clogged. I did go get a new one and we will be replacing it, which is right here. You just have to unbolt these lines and then there are 2 bolts holding the expansion valve in. I will need to recover all of the refrigerant that I just put into the system into this tank, so we're gonna start by doing that. Now we'll go back on with the new expansion valve. It can only go on one way. After replacing the expansion valve, the pressures on the manifold gauges still weren't within spec and the AC was still not functioning, so I decided to go ahead and replace the condenser and the compressor as well. Before reconnecting all of the AC lines, I decided to flush everything out, so I removed the expansion valve and flushed out all of the lines and the evaporator, and you'll see why I should have started with this process in the beginning. Well, I did all of that work for nothing. I have one of these little rubber stoppers in the AC line and it was pushed so far in that you couldn't really see it. I put these in when I was cleaning the engine bay and the engine and all of that, and I forgot to take one out. So this was clogging one of the AC lines, causing the pressure to go really high. I think I may have damaged the compressor actually because of this. So that is why the pressure was eventually going really low, because I think I damaged that compressor. So that was very stupid. A lot of work just because of this. And I think we're good now. So now we're just gonna recharge the AC and hopefully it'll work. I'm also going to vacuum bleed and fill the cooling system as I recharge the AC. All right guys, check that out. Evaporator temperature, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That is good. And our pressures are also looking good. I still need to fill it a little bit more. We should be up somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 40 PSI over here, and I think just over 200 on this side. So we're almost there. Not there yet, but AC is already cold. All right, so I'm replacing this driver's side mirror because the one that was in it was broken. Not only did the mirror adjustment not work, but the electronic fold was broken as well. So I got this one out of a pick apart. I'm not 100% sure if it's gonna work, but we're gonna plug it in and try. And how you pull this mirror off is you don't need to remove the door panel all the way. You just need to pry off the top part, and then you can pry off this trim piece part way, which you don't need to remove all the way as well. And then you can get to the bolts that are right in here. All right, so I got the replacement mirror in. Here are the bolts. There's 1, 2, and then one inside that hole there. So let's go ahead and test this. Let's test left, right, up, down. Perfect, and now let's test the folding. There we go. My main concern was being able to adjust the mirror, and that all works, plus the folding, so that's good. Now we'll just pop all of these panels back in and we're done. I'm also going to replace this taillight over here. I am still getting a couple of fault codes for some taillight issues. I know this one does now have a brake light that is out, so we'll be replacing that bulb. But I also got this replacement taillight because I don't know if this is contributing to any of those faults, and it also doesn't look very good. So we'll be replacing this taillight and a bulb over there. So as I was looking into the fault code for the adaptive brake lights, and I think one marker light, I did find a few burnt bulbs or almost burnt bulbs. I don't know if you will be able to see this, but there is some corrosion on the leads inside of this bulb or buildup. I'm not sure what it is, but I went ahead and got new bulbs for this, and I also cleaned out all of the contacts where the bulbs go. These are the housings that hold all of the bulbs in the back of the taillights. And where this housing meets up with the actual taillight housing in the car, which is like these 3 areas here. I went ahead and cleaned all of these contacts with just some electrical contact cleaner and some wire brushes, as well as clean the contacts in the car. So we're gonna go ahead and put the fresh bulbs in and put these back in the car and see if that fixes our problem. All right, so our footwell module does have a lot of faults right now, but that's probably because I had everything disconnected. So let's go in and check it out. Present. Okay, so the only thing is this right side marker lamp. Well, everything else, all of the brake lights, everything else has been removed. So let's go ahead and erase all the codes. Yes. I'm gonna hit the brakes a couple times, turn the lights on. Hit these. Turn the lights on again, hit the blinker. So even though it did still have that right side marker lamp fault, it may have gone away now, or it may not. We'll see if it comes back, but all of the other brake light faults that we were having are gone, so we're good. Let's move on. Now we're going to work on this fault here that's in the RAD2 that has to do with the aerial diversity antenna or the antenna amplifier. So in the E90, the aerial diversity antenna amplifier is up under this cover here by the third brake light. So we just need to pop this cover off first. There's just 2 clips. Uh-oh. Sounds like I broke something. Jeez. Okay. All right, so now this is the diversity antenna amplifier here, so we'll just pull this off. All right, so now we're gonna open this up carefully. These diversity antenna amplifiers are known to have issues with corrosion from water intrusion. So there's no apparent corrosion or anything damaged that is sticking out to me. I was hoping for maybe a little bit of corrosion on one of the plugs and I can just clean that up because my issue was intermittent. It wasn't happening consistently, but I don't see anything jumping out to me. Since I didn't see anything apparent wrong with this one that potentially I could fix, maybe some corrosion on one of the plugs or anything, I went and picked up a replacement. I got this from a pick apart. You can get a warranty with them. You pay a little bit extra, but if it doesn't work, you can bring it back, which is nice. So I got that. And then I also picked up a replacement one of these because I broke the clips on this one. So that was dumb of me. Be careful, some of this plastic is very brittle. When I was pulling this one off, it didn't seem to be as brittle. The plastic looks to be in better shape than this one, but this was only $5, so not a big deal. So let's go get this installed and see if it fixes our problem. And one more thing that could be a potential issue is grounding. So how this module grounds is actually through one of the screws that goes into this hole here, which goes through the circuit board there. So I pulled the screw out. I'm gonna clean that surface up, and then I'm also gonna clean the surface up that it grounds to in the car, which is on the roof. All right, check that out. Fault code went away. It was right in here for the RAD2, and no more fault code, and I tested the key fob and it's working. So I guess that aerial diversity antenna amplifier was faulty. The replacement is good, so we can move on. The FRM still has a fault here. It is for the side marker light, right, faulty. I pulled the marker light out, doesn't show any signs of corrosion or anything. I can still replace the bulb. It is working properly. Not sure really what that is, but all of the brake light faults that we had have been resolved. So we're gonna kind of move on from this for now. I may come back to it before I sell it, but not a big issue. All faults have been resolved. All right, that's gonna do it for today's video. I've got all of the mechanical and electrical issues sorted on this 328i E90. Now I need to move on to some of the cosmetic issues that it has, like these yellowed and faded headlights, and this crack in the repair that somebody did on the rear passenger door and quarter panel. So thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, go hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.